All right. Welcome everyone to this live stream. We are recording this live. We will then use it afterwards for those of you couldn't be today. And that there's a good reason for that because we will be enjoying the company of none other than Sauce Labs. We have Paloma Oliveira, and we're going to cover basically Penpot in a nutshell. We're going to speak about why Penpot, what that it's a thing, it even exists. Then we're going to comment a bit on some features, how to contribute, and we will have a final demo. And then after that, we will have a little surprise. So you want to stay till the end. So thank you very much, Paloma, for asking us backing. I think it was Foss backstage in Berlin. Perhaps was it? No, I think it was earlier than that. To just join you in this program of yours at the company. So over to you to explain, why we're here and what it's about Source Labs and this program.
Thank you so much. I think it was a mutual love for the Penpot community. I met you all at Atto last year, where I was
Yes.
launching the fellowship program, and we created this relationship, this friendship relationship that we are exploring. So the fellowship program is, I believe, a very groundbreaking program sponsored by Source Labs, where we are hands-on proposing a new replicable model to foster more diversity in open source. And we're doing that with a paid fellowship program during 6 months, where the fellows that I put it in my background, they can work together and learn all the different ecosystems that involves open source, from design until the final deployment, but really oriented and focused and who is using it. So a lot of open source best practices there, and having the chance to explore within the tech career or the software developer career all of they can do. Really focus on documentation and working in public. And this is where I thought Penpot would be a great, not just tool for them to use in the design, which they are using, but also um, like a role model on how can an open source product exist in the world and what's the benefits from it. And I was very curious, and I thought that your experience could help the fellows.
All right, so I think we can jump in. I'm also joined by Andy. Andy is a product owner at Penpot. So yeah, we're going to start with my piece. My piece is basically the pitch. Why Penpot? So I'm sharing my screen. Of course, I'm using Penpot to make presentations. I would encourage anyone to do that, particularly if you have your own library. So libraries and templates, great for presentations. Well, I think you already know in this fellowship program what Penpot is, but this is like the UI. So this is all about prototyping and design. By the way, I have to admit that this is not exactly the UI that you are used to, because this is the upcoming UI, which will be ready in a few weeks or months. Pretty cool. You can already see it in the website. But yeah, more or less, this is the basic idea of a tool: real-time collaboration, design and prototyping, um, complex vector operations, and then of course the code transformations. So we have a pretty big challenge, because when you say open source design and prototyping tools, you have to admit that there was no such thing. We have to kind of create a new such tool. We had vector illustration, we had video game tools, we had 3D modeling, but we didn't have design and prototyping tool. So when we decided to build this, we also decided who the target audience would be, and that is product teams. And for us at Kaleidos, the company behind Penpot, product teams is a cross-functional team. It's about design, it's about code, and it's about every stakeholder that has something to say about a product that has some sort of UI. So here you can see some shots of the UI. Particularly interesting, perhaps, is the one on the left, sorry, on the right, where you can see the inspect code mode for Flex Layout. We'll comment a bit more on that later. So our claim is that we bring design freedom for product teams, and this is a big claim. Um, how do we back it? Well, first of all, we make sure that everything we develop is open source. So the whole tool is open source, meaning that you can use it freely with no restrictions. You can hack it. You can adapt Penpot to your taste if you need so. Very importantly, you can self-host your own Penpot instance. This is not something you can do with any other tool, and it's also available for free. Of course, at some point in the future, we do have plans to have some special features or marketplace, some ideas around how people could actually participate in a business around Penpot. But for now, this is not a priority, and what's important is to make sure that we build an amazing platform that is open source. So open source gives you quite some freedom and autonomy. Also, open standards. This is a huge bet. This means that instead of creating a proprietary format or a closed source format or a non-standard format that is open, all different degrees, we basically say we are going to use SVG and CSS. That means that you are free in terms of the future-proof freedom. Whatever you develop or design with Penpot is will always be open standard based. And then, of course, collaboration. Collaboration between design and code being Flex Layout, a game changer. Some people have already told us that we are in the right direction. We have ton of testimonials around that. Numbers keep going up. Penpot is accelerating in terms of adoption, in terms of the diversity of the audience, also the different countries that are using Penpot, different teams, and we are well. That peak that you see there was when Adobe acquired Figma, but it just kept, that we got that as a peak, but then it is the cumulative momentum that really matters. You can see some stats there. Um, Languages, 23 languages translated. It's pretty big. This is happening. The company that created Penpot is Kaleidos. Kaleidos started this in one of our Pi Weeks, Personal Innovation Weeks, a week-long hackathon that happens every 6 months. And this is the people behind Penpot, behind Taiga, and behind Kaleidos. So this is the energy that we've got. So yeah, we said there's no open source design and prototyping tool. Why not create it? This is tough to say. So easy to say, tough to do, because it's one of the toughest software pieces that you can build. Probably that's one of the reasons that you don't see many of them. We do believe that designers at this stage, this decade, need/deserve better, and we strongly believe that open source has the answer and the solution to their actual problems and to future problems too. Well, this is a silly slide. This is Penpot being designed using Penpot. Of course, we design Penpot and prototype Penpot using Penpot, which is kind of meta, and you can see the infinite mirror concept here could be a thing. Um, but I think it's important what this means, that you can now use a tool like Penpot professionally to build such a challenging tool. And of course, we are not the only ones using Penpot. There are open source communities and companies, universities and private organizations already using Penpot, either on our cloud service or self-hosted. And that's it. That's the quick intro that I wanted to share with you. And think we have now a bit of time for questions. Okay, we have a. So Paloma, you are curious about this, right?
I am curious because there is a lot of pros and cons, but putting yourself out there in the open, there's its challenges as well, right? You're transparent, you're dealing with all that comes with. So it does intrigues me. Why did you? That was the main option for the pen port.
Well, I think there are two parts to that question, or to the answer to that question. First, the ethos of the company is we want open source to be ubiquitous. Whatever we do with our talent, privilege, resources, we will pursue that. So this was um, this was like then obvious to us that we would have to do this open source. It also has a pragmatic aspect. I don't think there is a way to go after Figma or that type of tool using their own playbook. I think other tools have tried that and they have failed. When you have a market player dominates the market, around 80% of the market, and you go and use their same strategy, the same concept, argue, it's one could argue you really need to innovate so much on top of that that I think it's better to just go from a complete different angle. So open source, open standards, but also real collaboration between designers and coders, which is not something other tools consider a priority. Okay, okay, that I think that's it. Um, Andy, would you
Yeah,
like to go on?
yeah, I think I can continue. I I'm gonna try to briefly summarize how we how do we build Penpot and how we design it and our methods. Everything starts with the team. At Penpot, we are what we call a cross-functional and self-managed team. Cross-functional meaning that we have in the team every skill needed to build the product. We have no dependencies with other departments or things like that. And self-managed because we decide the way we work. In this slide, you can see like the composition of the current product team. There is something that I think is easy to highlight, which is the fact that we have a very high ratio of designers related to developers um, by any standard in the industry, I guess. And it's even higher if you know that this little guy in the left, which happens to be me, the product owner, it's also a designer, and it's a still designing in the project. We have like one designer per every two developers. Um, the usual ratio in startups it's about 1 to 10, 1 to 9, 1 to 10. So you might get the idea that this is a very uh, design culture-led product. With designers, with the concept of designers, I include user experience, research, visual design, interaction design. We try to keep it simple. The same with developers, all kind of developers, backend, frontend, system, etc. And well, right in the corner, we have the quality assurance team, which is currently an external team. So I technically don't include them inside. Um, when we decide how we work, this is one of the results. We're working with agile methodologies. We are working currently with the Scrum, which means that we break our work in short cycles or sprints, which are usually called. Our sprints are of 3 weeks, and a sprint is nothing more than a period of time when you commit to deliver something. Um, and the interesting thing here is that, well, we know that integrating design methods and design practices into agile methods can be, well, let's say, challenging. Yeah. So we decided to adopt this, what we call the dual track way. We try to give proper space for the design practices, which we do by creating two different tracks. One for what is called outside discovery, and we call definition, which might be called as well design track. In this track, we do the research, the prototyping, the visual design, etc. And another track for delivery, the track in which we actually code the feature. We code the feature, we tested it, we fine-tune it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. This schema might give you the impression that designers and developers work separately, which is not true, because we both designers and developers participate in both sprints. Designers participate also in the delivery track, helping with the testing and with the fine-tuning, and developers in the discovery and definition track, giving their ideas and participating in the definition of the user stories. Okay. Our roadmap is public. We are using Taiga. This is a screenshot first of Taiga, but yeah, better than a screenshot, I can show it to you. Yeah, you can see here that we have this URL, this website direction that I think we're going to share with you. This is public. You can access to that, and you can take a look at everything we're doing. This is our backlog, which is a list of prioritized items that are the things that we are planning to do. And here at the right side, you can see two sprints. These two sprints are the sprints that I was talking before. The sprint 43 is currently the development sprint. Here is where we are developing the features that are already been designed, have already been designed. And then we also have the design definition sprint, where we are designing things. So if you want to, get into this, take a look, and post your opinions, you're more than welcome. Okay, let's continue with the slides. About what we call discovery track or definition track, another interesting thing to say is that it's always evolving. We are always rethinking our priorities. The roadmap that I showed to you, it's far from being fixed. It's not like we have a prioritized list for the next 3 years. We could do that, but we know that this won't work. This will be a total failure. So what we do is that in every sprint, when we start, we ask ourselves, what is the most valuable thing that we can do in the following three weeks? The most valuable thing that we could build, and then we do it. Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of clear what we want to do, and sometimes don't. Sometimes it's a bit messier, and sometimes we need to do proper thinking about that. And that's why sometimes we do some workshops to decide what are our main focuses. This screenshot, it's from one of our workshops. This technique is called opportunity solution tree. Yeah. So from problems we go to specific features, and we decide as a team what is the most important thing that we can do. In this workshop specifically, we decided to be the flex layout feature, which is a feature that I'm going to show you later. And when we make the decisions, we don't make them under our own ideas, assumptions, and biases. We use all the information that we get by the way. We are continuously learning, and we learn by very different ways. We have a lot of feedback. We have user feedback. We do usability testing sessions to know about how the platform works, if it's going okay or not. Research activities, everything that you can imagine, we have done it. We like to try new things always. And metrics. We like to measure everything that the users just don't tell us. If a user is not telling something, you can try to get some data and learn from that. But yeah, saying all that, I'd like to to stop a bit in the users feedback thing. You can well, you can get in touch with us via email, social networks, GitHub. Uh, we are we are active in a lot of channels. Um, what I like to say here is that this is probably the easiest way to influence in our roadmap. Um, a lot of things that we have built in Penpot and the way that we have built it, it has been strongly influenced by the feedback, the user requests of people that are outside the team. So yeah, I encourage you to do that because we really listen. Yeah, later on, Pablo, we will talk a bit more about contributions, and that's it.
I love that.
Yeah, I have to point it out that I was um, flowing in love here with you saying how much you use you listen to the user, and from that point of view I see the much more value in being an open project, how you can influentiate, and me as a user that I can directly request all my wish list as like having a voice on it is a beautiful thing. But from like the fellowship perspective, and I saw Django popping in with a question, there was all the other thing that came to my mind, that is beautiful to see how to actually work in open and how you value the work of the designer together with the development itself. That usually this hierarchy is a bit uh, not that equal. It's lovely to see it.
Yeah, it's a well. That's one of the tricky things here. Um, we try to keep it simple. We put dates for the delivery sprint, but we don't put date for the discovery sprint. So that we will live for the design practices all the time they need. So the workload, we it's just I don't know how to say it. Well, what we try to do with the workload is basically avoid bottlenecks by any means, and that means that if we feel that we need more, you know, we need to put more effort in designing something, because if not, we're gonna have the development team, stop it. Then we we try to put more workload of whatever is needed in the development team, and the designer have more time, and vice versa, something like that. But the really important thing here is that we just not don't put dates at the design activities. Yeah, we take what it needs. It's needed.
Okay, let's see. Any other question? Okay, uh, let's move on. I think it's now my turn to share this or the bit of information. Now, you might be wondering, um, is it are they trying to make me a contributor or anything? Not really, but I think it's important for people to understand that some products or some pieces of technology um, it can evolve and can benefit from the contributions coming from everyone. But in order for that to be a reality, typically those products or pieces of technology need to be open source. Otherwise, there is not a community with a capital C. And even if you don't plan to help a product in any way, it's important that you understand how the product is taking contributions, how they are managed, what the different types of contributions that exist can be used to further improve the product. And you, as an end user, not a contributor, will understand how that actually benefits you too. So, how can you contribute to Penpot? because actually this is a request that we get. So it's relevant for ourselves, like within the team, but it's also very relevant for people out there, knowing that this is an open source product, that whatever contribution they make is open for everyone, is not immediately taken hostage by us and then charge for it or anything. No, they know that they can contribute, and that generosity it's multiplied and disseminated across the big Penpot audience. So it's not unusual to get requests like this. I want to help. I want to work. I want to do stuff around Penpot. So of course you could do core contributions. You could do as a coder, as a developer, you could go to the GitHub repo. There's the link, and pick uh, some or create your own features, do some core contributions. But this is hard because this means that you need uh, massive context information. This is typically um, only the core team can really go into such depth. But this is something that you could do or you could eventually do. So I have to list this. A lot of people don't code. Um, and some people that code don't know Clojure. Clojure is the language, the programming language um, that we use to build Penpot, both on the backend side and the front end side. Kind of fluid. It's kind of fluid. It's super neat. So what other options you have if you don't code? Well, the most important one I would like to highlight is actually beautiful content, libraries and templates. These are assets that can be reused by hundreds of thousands of users. So this is a shot of the grid that we have on our libraries and templates section on our website, but there are also some curated list in app. So a selection of these ones are ready available just one click away if you use Penpot. You will have seen that already, bottom pane. So it doesn't take much time to create a nice library or a nice template, and we will immediately promote that throughout our audience. Next is translations. Translations are absolutely critical for us because we really want to be a global product. There are ideas around how to be a truly inclusive and global design tool when design is something contested in terms of what is good design, what's a good design process is not something that is universally agreed on. So as a tool, we are always careful not to create a super Western biased design tool. So we have to do that, but then we need the help of people across the world translating the user interface into various languages. Languages that do left to right, languages that do right to left. Because otherwise, we would be forcing people to just, go for English and Spanish and perhaps one or two other languages, and that would be wrong. So here you can see a Webplate, the service, the open source translation platform that we're using, with different degrees of different percentages of completion. Again, it doesn't take much to get a decent level of coverage. You don't have to go to get till 100% to be able to ship a translation, and you're always welcome with existing projects. And then finally, this is a list for anyone wanted to have a comprehensive list. Reporting bugs helps a lot. Every release has like the list of new cool stuff that was shipped in that release, but also then perhaps five times more items just under the bugs, squash bugs, list. And many of those are actually reported by users in a way that can be digested by the team and very quickly sorted out. So that is the bug hunting is It's really amazing. There's a ton of corner cases um, using Penpot, so users do have a lot to say about this. Documentation, you can go use it, read it, and find something that is not clear or something that's missing, and you can also contribute directly to the documentation. Pretty good project to start with. You can join the community. You can go to community.penpot.app and you can just enjoy the conversations, express your ideas, opinions. Some we get input from the community that informs our roadmap. Andy was saying, it's continuously evolving. One of the reasons is because we listen. Where do we listen? One of the places we actively listen is the community there. You can create tutorials. Every single day we see new tutorials popping up on YouTube, other channels. We have our own tutorials, and we try to keep a up-to-date list of tutorials created by other people. That's impossible task, but we do our best. We try our best. Um, and if you want to perhaps create a tutorial to explain just a specific feature or a use case, that's really amazing, and it helps because it's very visual and people really get it. And then finally, if you do something with Penpot, share it, and also be proud of the fact that you use Penpot to design or build that. So we have this hashtag made with Penpot, and if you spread the word, that also helps. That is a it's really a simple contribution, but actually amplifies our project and our project values too. And then using Penpot, just using Penpot makes a difference because there's a lot of people that will back you, will say, "I love you. I love your values. What you're trying to achieve, your mission, the fact that you are important, or the cause that you are trying to pursue is important. We should do more about that." But then they don't use your product. They use closed source products, proprietary products, and you don't get real bandwidth out of that. So just using Penpot is makes a huge difference because then you unlock the rest of the potential contributions. Without that, nothing else happens. So I think that's it for this segment. Let's see if there's any questions about these contribution methods. It's absolutely key for an open source product to have a vibrant community that contributes. And when I said community with a capital C, I really meant it. There's a lot of proprietary products that speak about their communities, but the communities typically are there's an asymmetric relationship where they produce content, but they don't really own the benefits of doing that. The ownership is not there. Uh, we believe that this is quite different with Penpot. If we don't have any questions, we can
There
move
is
on.
one thing
Oh yeah,
that I just to point it out because Sauce Labs standards, like our mission is to bring softwares that are reliable to the world, and is that it was not on the list, but I imagine it is so a possibility of contribution adding tests to the project as well, maybe.
yes. Anything around test is probably represents the difference between shipping a nice product or a truly productivity boost product. Because the moment you use Penpot and there is a glitch, there is an issue, there is a performance issue, or there was something that was not quite right. As a designer, you just lost focus. You get out of the zone. So testing, when we speak about testing Penpot, it really is the whole spectrum. It's about performance. It's about making sure that the feature is developed the way it should be, but also the polishedness. The whole experience using Penpot has to flow. So it's and also it is a browser product. It's a web-based product. So there's testing across browsers because not all browsers are created equal. You know that, Paloma. And there is an extra challenge for that. But there's also benefits in using web technology. You're building something, on top of giant shoulders. There is standard technology out there to help you accelerate the rate, the velocity of your development. You don't have to redo everything. But then you have those challenges coming from the different browser stacks, and that's also part of the testing process.
Absolutely, and that's definitely our expertise that we hope
Yes.
that our public could jump in and help.
You're more than welcome. Yeah, it could be amazing.
I think I'll just highlight again that any contribution that you make, it is not like owned by us. It is immediately transferred to every single person using Penpot in an open and free way. So there's no dilemma in terms of who is really benefiting from my work as a contributor and external to the company. It's like everyone, also you, but everyone. So which is not something that happens normally in a product where there's this relationship is not really on equal terms, let's say. But anyway, this with this, I think we can end this little segment. And now I think Andy, you will show us some cool stuff.
Okay, give me some. Okay, yeah. Okay, some things that we already talked about could have sounded like a bit abstract. So we like to share with you, in a specific example, and we choose the flexible layouts, flex layout, which is a feature that we released like a couple of months ago. Um, the to provide a bit of context, the most requested feature for a long time at Penpot was what is called outside auto layout or smart layout, which is the capability to create flexible designs which can adapt automatically depending on screen sizes and things like that. Yeah, it's sort of an standard already in the design industry, and we didn't have it. So we really knew, because of the user request and the user feedback, that we had to build something to tackle this need. But still, we did our research, we did our homework, not to know if we should build that, but to know what will be the best way to do it, the best flexible layout possible outside and in the landscape of the interaction design features. So after doing our homework, we got back to Taiga and we created a definition. This is an epic. An epic, it's like a group of different user stories. Each user story, it's a part of the thing that we want to build. We divided this in different stages, and we provided, definition with what we think that we needed to build. We have different ways to define user stories. We are like not very bureaucratic with this. We just do whatever we feel we need to do in every moment. So yeah, you might see like big difference between our definitions, but it's fine for us. It's fine for us. We like to change. So once we did that, which is done in the, you remember the definition sprint, we designed it. We designed it also during the definition stage. Okay, this is a, you remember the slide, the Pablo slide about that we designed Penpot with Penpot. Here you have an example. This is the file you see that we have a lot of pages covering different different things about the feature. I'm going to show you this one, which is called phase one. It's about the basics of the feature. And here we define, you see that we usually don't need to design whole screens. Sometimes it's okay for us to, just to go for the component, to the small piece of design that we need, because we already have a lot of context in the project. So we don't need like much more to start with. So here we define the basics, how to identify this layout, where it's going to be, how it's going to be launched, how it's going to be shown in the layers list, how it's going to be created. Also, whole screens sometimes they are needed, and as you can see, every piece of information, every type of specification that we feel as designers that is going to be needed in the moment of development, well, we break it down here and we design it here. And as you can see, this document is full of different kinds of annotations, crosses, comments, mysterious dots, things like that. This is the product of the back and forth relationship between the developer and the designer. We like to think about these designs like we like to think that these designs are a living document. It's not something that you sign off and you deliver and you forget it until next time, but it's in a space where the designers and developer talk about how to plan, how we plan that the feature is going to behave, it's going to work, etc., etc. And then when we finish this, we build it in the development sprint. But in this case, we did not release it immediately. What we did was, because this was too important for us, and we were trying different things, new things to solve this same problem. So we decided to do what is called a beta test. We gathered a group of people, there were around 60 people, that were trying the feature along like a month, 3 weeks, or 3 weeks a month. And then we got the feedback and we processed this feedback. You can see this very boring document in which what we did was to transform this feedback in actionable points. We did the clusters, the classification. We tried to set priorities, etc., etc. And yeah, when we say that we listen, we really listen. We implemented most of this feedback, and some of the feedback is not implemented yet, but it's in the backlog. Obviously, if we don't agree with something, we don't go for it. We have our product opinion always. Something interesting here is that what we wanted was to test the feature usability wise, but also what we wanted was to get ideas from the community that we might not have had without them. And some of these ideas are actually being developed. So yeah, the way that our flex layout feature works, it's in part a product of the relationship with the community. And yeah, I'm not going to finish the presentation with an spreadsheet, so I'm going to show you the actual feature, how it works. Okay, I have a couple of screens here, and as you see, I have here a list with a lot of items, which are well ordered, but I would like to to look at that a little bit better, like in a grid. I think it's going to be fine. This could have taken a bit of time to create, well, to organize and then to update if I need to make some changes. But with layout, I can do it, much easier, in a much easier way. I'm going to add the layout property, which is this property that we have at the design panel here, PAM. It seems that nothing have changed, but the thing is that we have here like some superpowers. to start working with this part of the design. So yeah, I can play with the direction from left to right, reverse, column, whatever. But what I wanted was like a grid. So I'm going to use this property, which is wrap. This is very unique here. The the layout features of the competitors really don't have this possibility. So bam, I push that and you see that, well, now we're having something. And I can keep playing. I can keep playing so everything will look, a bit better. Yeah, I think I have this. Well, nice. I can also, drag the spaces. I can play a lot. This is a really cool feature. Okay, 20. I need it to be 20. Okay, nice, right? I have another example here from the same app. This already has the layout setup. I could keep, playing with the margins, for instance. But the interesting thing is that, as you can see, the design adapts to the width. And I could do, fun things like this, like setting a preset, because I have a mobile screens here. But if this is properly set, I could say, okay, now I want the iPad screen. Bam. Just with one click, I have something. Well, this could be better, a bit bigger, right? And you see that everything adapts automatically, saving a lot of time for the designer, which is pretty nice. But the thing doesn't end here. If I push the inspect tab, I can see the properties of the layout. And here you will see, like terms like justify contents, align items, display flex. This is CSS. This is CSS code. Those are CSS properties, not code. The code is here. You can also get the code if you want it. Here you can see the CSS properties, and these CSS properties are being used, the name of these CSS properties are being used also here in the design panel. So what we're doing here, it's that the designer and the developer are talking like the same language, and the designer is designing something that is going to be feasible in the development part, and and we're going to improve the relationship between the two worlds using this. This has been already tested, and the results have been beyond great. Yeah, we're extremely happy with this feature. And that's it for my part.
Very cool.
Yeah, would you like?
Very cool. And also, the sun came out, and to just witness. Oh, it's going. Oh, it's going away. To witness your demo. Django is very happy with the tool. Actually, we just recently released 1.18. I think that happened this week, a couple of days ago, or at least we sent those emails this week, and we keep improving Flex Layout, and we will keep improving Flex Layout, and we will add grid layout, so another CSS standard, and we will keep adding these features that bring designers and developers together. But yeah, this was super cool. Okay.
Okay. What is the best? Yeah, you're currently building your design system to be open and shared. Well, that's kind of a very open question, because every team might need a different kind of design system. Design systems usually are like the reflection of how of some team agreements. So depending on how you work, you might need something different. But if you want it open and shared, the best way is to build a design system that works for you, and then send it to us, because we will more than probably publish it at the libraries and templates page. Yeah, Yeah, a lot of people is doing that right now. We are sharing a lot of design systems at that page, and some of these design systems even make the cut to end up inside the app because we have a module inside the Penpot app
Mm.
from which you can automatically import a specific design system. And well, sometimes we add some of them if we understand that this could be the case. This could be end up there. But yeah, just send it to us, and it will be available from the libraries and templates page, which is very visited place.
I like to add that the Fedora team,
Hmm.
Fedora is the open source community behind Fedora, the for Linux distribution, and that is also sponsored by Red Hat, and they use Penpot to prototype and design some of their products or webs, etc. They have their own design systems, and they share it. They also develop in the open, design in the open, and they share it. And they can just use the links that you get using the interactive prototype aspect of Penpot, and you can take that link and make sure that that link is readable, accessible by anonymous people. But if you really want people to comment, you will probably need them to have an account. Well, probably not. You need them to have an account and be part of the project. But I think you can already start by just sharing in read-only mode, whatever specific um, designs or pages you created. For instance, you could create an interactive prototype that actually is a walkthrough across the design system. And that artifact is what you actually share. And then you can perhaps ask for feedback in a different channel. Like, okay, I have this without you giving access to the design canvas. So like the design itself, like all the stuff, but just the interactive prototype. So you can use the interactive prototype as a presentation for a design system. But just send an email, share it with us. We can perhaps give you some ideas to make that. Also, why do you want to share it, right? It's also important to understand the goals behind sharing it, besides sharing for the sake of sharing. But what do you want to have to yeah, for that to happen?
I realized that I was talking by myself, reiterating like a great answer. Like, yeah, you have to ask the question why you're sharing. But those are really helpful tips we are in
Mm.
currently discussion in the fellowship, like how we are sharing this. So those are really helpful.
Yeah, I think in the developer or development world, people have been traditionally, historically, more inclined to share whatever shitty code they had. I'm unsure because that's not is my background is not in design. I'm unsure if there is some extra mental hurdle to overcome when you what you want to share is design. But I think we're seeing more and more people, more and more teams sharing early designs, early work, drafts, and asking for some feedback, ideas, or just making sure that you can reuse it. Penpot allows you to do that if you make your design system a library, for instance, or a template. Okay, so I think we said we had a little surprise towards the end. It was a surprise for us also, but a very pleasant surprise. So we'd like to welcome Django. Uh, Probably you know Django, and Django's going to share something with us.
Yeah, sure. So I believe I'm also sharing my screen. Yep, there we go. So we have been working and building. I hate to say this, doing most of our building in Figma, as it was decided on at the very beginning of this whole process, as something a bit more familiar with our design team than Penpot. However, we've been conducting exercises within Penpot, and as an experiment, sort of as my own contribution, I decided to start building a prototype that we've recently been developing in Figma in Penpot to compare and contrast the experience, sort of as a not only a design audit, but I first found out about Penpot about this time last year, and I wanted to see how much it had changed since that release that I had been using. The answer was a lot. I've been really astonished by the capabilities that the Flex layout system offers. It's really just fantastic, and the overall product has improved significantly. A couple of things that I've noticed when I've been using this system, and I'm not entirely certain if this is my own machine or if this is the machines of mine and my fellows, but we have noticed, and I'll get the big bad right out of the way here for the very first time. We've noticed a minor latency issue with Penpot compared with Figma, and that's, I think, just down to the fact that this is doing real-time vector SVG editing, and using the pen tool can oftentimes have latency issues where one person is making one edit and another person is making the same edit, and then the page refreshes. However, that being said, the UI is phenomenal. I mean, this feels like a much more powerful program. When we've been using this project, and I'll go back to our draft page here, but we've been using it a lot for brainstorming and ideation and distributed communication. And so for projects, where we need to upload images, provide commentary, and then use this effectively as a whiteboarding system, it's been fantastic. And it I can't stress this enough. It's free. It's free and it's open source, and that conforms with the overall ethos of what we've been trying to work on. Here again, you can see some minor latency issues that we had. I think they're kind of a little bit archived here, but oftentimes when we were dragging out specific notepads, this was done in January, I believe. They would duplicate automatically. Granted, the team member that we were having this issue with is in Berlin, and we were in the United States, and so there is a cable that the electricity has to physically travel that distance along, and there were some minor issues there, but overall, I'm reading off of a whole set of notes here. Overall, Penpot feels like it's designed with professional developers in mind, like designed with professional developers in mind, whereas Figma feels like it was designed with designers in mind and then adapted for use with developers. I can point to a lot of different things to really demonstrate that, but the biggest one is this button right here. With Figma, there's no walkthrough within the program itself for every single shortcut that you could ever need. And while some of these shortcuts are slightly different from what I would expect from an Adobe system, this is not an Adobe system. And this has been fantastic. When I'm looking to learn a new program, as a designer, that can be somewhat daunting because we're not asked to do that very often. What I want is to avoid that interruption that you were talking about earlier, where anytime my flow gets disrupted and I have to go look up something somewhere else, I'm moved out of the ecosystem and I feel disconnected. And now I need to reconnect with the system and get back into what I'm doing. As someone with ADHD, that can be doubly disarming, where now I'm on the ecosystem and I found another link and I found another link and I found another link. And the next thing you know, I'm an expert in this one specific part of the program, but it's been 45 minutes and now I'm making a cup of tea and my work has been entirely disrupted. So within this system, being able to learn everything about all of the shortcuts and really improve my own usage within the product itself, great, phenomenal. It's also an editable UI. I don't really mean to speak to Figma all of the time, but this works phenomenally on a laptop. I don't know if you're very familiar with Figma, but Figma has massive sidebars, which works great on a desktop. But then as soon as you go to a laptop, you might have to have your image that small to your eyes in order to see the full thing on either side of the sidebars, and the sidebars can't be moved easily. So editable UI, just phenomenal. What else did I want to say? Oh, just that I look forward to sampling and building within this more, and then practicing handoff to our developers. I would love to hear a bunch of their own feedback about how different it is to be pulling from a prototype built within Penpot versus a prototype built within Figma. I'm sure that that's going to be a very different process, and I'm sure they're interested to see that as well. I believe that's it from me, but I will publicly make these. I'll make these notes public somewhere and send them out so that people can see the feedback at this current moment for the community.
Thank you. That's what we love, right? Honest, to the point, no bullshit, reaction, feedback. That's wonderful. As you were covering the commenting on the latency, I don't think it was so much latency, but we did find an issue recently when this real-time collaboration was happening. Typically you do that when you're doing like whiteboarding, kind of brainstorming sessions, and everyone is dragging, let's say, post-its, things like that, right? We have a library for that, and we were seeing that duplicate issue that should be fixed now with 1.18. So I would encourage you to like redo that test, because if you find it happening again, like Berlin and New York, whatever, then it's a different thing, and we need to take a look.
Sure.
Latency issues should be a minor concern. Human speed still is much lower than whatever the transatlantic cable can do for us. But we did find some issues when a lot of people were simultaneously kind of dragging and dropping, creating stuff at the same time, and Penpot was trying to show past versions of was trying to be a friend to everyone, but trying to do that was showing past versions of the design to everyone, and there will be these conflicts, and the result was terrible. But that should be fixed now. So, but yeah, this was reported as a bug.
Great, perfect. Well, I'm sure my team is looking forward to knowing that I'm going to be conducting another exercise in Penpot soon.
Yeah. No, and also
we're all testing that, guys.
Yeah, I think the cloud service that we provide for free, you go to penpot.app and you click there and you go to design Penpot app. It's fine and should work. Someone working in Japan and then another in Kenya, it should work pretty decently. But then if there's specific issues because of the organization you're working at, there's some network, I don't know, stuff going on, some glitches, there's also always the option to self-host your own Penpot instance and make sure that works, organization-wise. Pretty cool. Super cool. Thank you for that, Django. I think that's a perfect way to end this session. I don't know if we have one last question. Probably not. I think we were all like super excited to see that feedback, that great feedback. So I think I'm getting the signal that this is over. We spent an hour and almost 5 minutes. I would like to thank everyone, particularly Paloma, Django here, and Saucelabs in general. The fellowship program is something super cool, and we hope we can continue this relationship through open source design tools, and Penpot in the future. Thank you so much for today. That was great.
Thank you for
Thank you very
putting all
much.
these presentations together. We'll probably watch it over and over again with the fellows, especially the part that you're bringing a lot of value to us. And big shout out to the product. I love. Actually, win a hackathon once using Penpot, so I'm really great fan. But big shout out to Django that is leading the design efforts. He's also presenting in a lot of conferences about open design, and he does
Yeah.
this interesting role that really bridge the gap and create communication between developers and designers. So big shout out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
Everybody.
bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.